Oh my goodness, it's Tribble time. We are doing our 3-part series to kick off this series, Retro Trekkers. And wait a minute. Brought to you by Starbase 80. Yes. And this is the middle episode of the Tribble-gy, if you will. And we should get started.
Retro Trackers. Get down with the Retro Trackers. Captain John and Commander Joe. Retro Trackers. We love our Star Trek. Retro Trackers. The nerd muscles get the facts. Retro Trackers. Get down with the Retro Trackers. Let's get it done. Retro Trackers. Jumping back with the recap. Retro Trackers. Review and have some fun.
Review. Okay, I'm Captain John, one of your hosts. Let's bring the other guy. Could we please have to the bridge, Commander Joe Townsell? Commander Joe Townsell. I gotta get that bosun's whistle. Woo-woo!
Reporting for duty, Captain John.
Commander Townsell. What a mission we have in front of us. The 3-week mission to
3-week mission.
Create the love and appreciation for tribbles that you and I, tell me if you think this is true, you and I feel that people should appreciate the tribbles more.
Well, I don't know that people don't appreciate the tribbles a lot generally, although the point you make a good point in that I was going to touch on this later on in trivia, aka Townsell's tidbits, as you like to call them, and me.
Oh my gosh!
I guess the higher ups didn't always appreciate the tribbles.
Yes, yeah, true.
And that's why we didn't get a sequel to the Tribbles, which we looked at last week, until the animated series, which we'll look at tonight.
Absolutely. I just realized I didn't load up the videos that I was supposed to load up.
Uh-oh.
So terrible, dude.
Well, you just ran them all past me. I said, "Oh, sounds good, John." So I missed it too.
I'm so mad. Where are they? Okay. I need our segments. Where are our segments? Okay. I guess we're gonna have to go without the segments. And where am I? I'm in Web of Mystery. What am I? I'm sorry, I'm looking at another show. Hang on. Oh,
well, they're all great shows, so it's easy to confuse them sometimes. Although I don't think you can find a lot of tribbles in old time radio.
No, and that is more the pity, because they could certainly use it. Okay, we are going to go through. Let me do our first segment. Let's talk about the chat is already making me laugh. Time for us to introduce Joe Fantastic. I like to think of them as so similar to Mad Magazine. That's how I think of them.
Oh, well, high praise, John. Thank you.
I absolutely love the beats, the way they are laid down by our very own Mr. Townsell. So let's get, all right, so this will be part of it. I'm sorry you're having to watch me do this. Okay, so here we go, everybody. Get ready. Tribble-gy Part 2. More tribbles, more troubles. And this from our very own Joe Townsell.
Retro Trekkers. Tribble-gy Part 2 of 3. More tribbles, more troubles. The Enterprise is transporting 2 robot ships containing Quinto Triticale for the starving masses on Sherman's planet. You know, those poor folks' stomachs are really rumbling at this point. After all, they never got their Quadro Triticale. Uh-oh.
It's true.
Klingons appearing on sensors. They're firing upon a poor, defenseless little scout ship. Yeah, right. Scotty, beam out the pilot before his ship is blown to smithereens.
Great Shatner.
I can't do it, Captain. any more than Joe Townsend can perform a passable Scottish accent.
That sounds more
I'm
Russian.
doing
Well, the
fine.
Klingon stasis-filled weapon is the culprit. But the weapon sucks up so much power that it essentially makes their vessel useless afterward,
Oh.
much like the Tribbles themselves. Kirk makes a mental note of this, as well as a captain's log.
Uh-oh.
Scotty finally manages to beam the scout ship pilot aboard. Cyrano John, that is Cyrano Jones.
How
Well, good
dare
old
you,
Cyrano has
sir.
messed up the Tribbles' genetics, and they no longer multiply. They're now safe Tribbles. Yeah, right. Not only that, but Jones has really effed up the Tribbles and made them all pink. And there's another side effect. Now the Tribbles get really big and fat. Well, that's okay because Jones has brought along a glommer, a goofy-looking thing that eats Tribbles by absorbing them directly into its stomach. Pretty gruesome for a cartoon.
It is.
Needless
There
to
it is.
say, Klingon Captain Koloth is pissed. The Klingons want their glommer back. Damn you, Kirk! Because of you, Klingon space is infested with Tribbles once again. But Kirk has his own problems. Turns out the new Tribbles don't just get big and fat, they actually become big colony hosts to more little Tribbles.
Uh-oh.
Fire a phaser at one and see for yourself. A Tribble explodes and a bunch of little Tribbles pour out.
Oh, man.
Again, pretty gruesome for a cartoon. Kirk has more Tribble troubles.
This is the scene I
He
always
has to
remember.
constantly shoo a giant Tribble out of his chair. Finally, even after Mr. Spock suggests he take a load off, Kirk decides to stand.
No, I'll just
Well, the
stand.
Enterprise shakes, rattles, and rolls some more, breaking open all the containers of grain.
Uh-oh.
It's Thanksgiving Day for Tribbles. Bigger Tribbles, bigger troubles. Not even the glommer can swallow that big of a mouthful. Koloth, you want this weird-looking little glommer back? No problemo, mi amigo. Transporting it now. Confronted by an extra huge Tribble on the Klingon ship, the glommer hightails it in the opposite direction in
Oh,
comical
no.
fashion.
Oh, no. Poor
Feeds don't fail me now. Well, that takes care of Koloth and the Klingons, but overgrown Tribbles still overrun the Enterprise. They're no doubt looking to F up Kirk's chicken sandwich and coffee once again.
No.
When McCoy is talking about how he broke down the Tribble colonies into individual Tribbles, Kirk points to one lodged in a Jeffries tube. He tells McCoy that he missed the Tribble. The Doctor replies that he didn't, and moments later the colony breaks down into individual little Tribbles,
Oh, no.
just in time for them all to land on Kirk's head. Once again, deja vu.
Stick with what
So
works.
Scotty quips, if we must have Tribbles, may they all be little ones. Dun-dun-dun. So finally, Kirk breaks the fourth wall and gives us a big wink and smirk. You know, just like Superman and Batman always did in their old cartoons. He's happy because, for now at least, the trouble with Tribbles has been vanquished once again.
Oh. That
Looks like
is
I'm holding a
fair.
big turd.
You know, I don't think it's fair that it looks bad when that's exactly what it looked like in the cartoon. Like, it's not your fault it looks like a turd. That's how they designed it.
One with
Uh,
chunks.
There is so much to this. Hang on. Again, I didn't load these up at the right time, so I'm gonna have to. All right, segments. I know, yeah, if I put in segments, that'll get me to where I need to go.
By the way, good evening to all our faithful viewers tonight who are saying hello and
Yes,
cracking wise along with us on the beats.
we love it.
Yeah.
We love it. Keep those wisecracks a coming. Let's get down and dirty. More Tribbles, more trouble.
When you're talking Cyrano John, you can only get down and dirty.
So the episode here is actually okay. Let's back up a little bit because I'm not sure a lot of people have gotten a chance to watch Star Trek the animated series. Did you see when it was originally on, Joe?
73 to 75.
Yeah. So you were just like a year younger than I am, right? I think there's a year.
Almost. A huge distinction at our age now. But yeah, we were 8 or 9 at the time, both of us.
Yeah. What did you think of the show? Did you enjoy the animated series at all?
Well, I don't recall seeing it when it was on initially on NBC and Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
And you know what? I know that later that Gene Roddenberry kind of disowned it because he felt that a lot of it was apocryphal and blah blah blah. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, it had some standout episodes. Others were pretty goofy. And I'm not counting More Tribbles among them. I mean, it was intentionally goofy, like the original was.
Absolutely.
That's fine. It had some standout episodes. Now, of course, I'm going to draw a blank on a title here. I have my trivia right in front of me, but the one standout episode was of the animated series was Yesteryear.
Oh yeah.
Second episode shown where Spock basically relives part of his childhood and for great effect. I mean, it was, of course, it had a lot of writers from the original series. So,
yes.
So I think it did a pretty good job considering the limitations. And I'll have more to say on that in Townsville's Tidbits.
Right on.
I think overall, I definitely consider it to be years 4 and 5 of the original 5-year mission. Why not?
DC Fontana was a big producer on this, was she not?
She was. She continued her story consultant duties onto this series. Of course, David Gerrold came back to write the sequel to Trouble with Tribbles, which we just got the beats on.
Yeah.
So a lot of the talent returned.
Yeah.
Both in front of and behind the camera, so to speak.
Yeah. Great question from Raphael. Is the animated series considered canon?
Well, again, Roddenberry kind of disowned it, but I think he kind of got outvoted if that's possible. I'm saying for sure. There's no reason why this can't be canonical.
Right.
It was written and produced to fit with the original series.
Yes.
No one was bleeding out of character. Again, some duds, but there were some duds in TOS as well. So
absolutely.
I think most people consider it canonical. Yes, Raphael.
Yeah, I that is what I have always heard, which makes me happy because I think as a kid, my main objection to it was that I'm not in love with the animators, because these were the animators who did Archie. They also did the Tarzan cartoon,
Filmation,
right? And Hal Sutherland, a big part of that, and I think Lou Skirmer was one of the other guys. There are a couple other fellas in there. And their animation tended to be really flat and not very animated. I'm not even trying to be cute, but
it's very limited,
extremely limited. And animation, especially at that time, was hugely expensive.
Well, you also got a lot of this type of thing. So we didn't have to do new animation matching, lip syncing,
right?
So you can use that horrendous shot of Joe over and over again. Different episodes.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I hope I'm not giving away a tidbit, but there is, especially I think in this episode, there's Kirk doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that so that they wouldn't have to animate his lips.
Yeah.
Raphael says, right there with you. John Atkins says, I watched it as it aired. I'm a couple of years older than you guys. Wow, you're ancient, pal.
Man, that's old.
Man, that's old. And
hey, everyone's here tonight and those of us that are usually here with us are always young at heart, of course. So no old people here.
Why else would you be watching, two old effers sitting around talking about their memories of watching Star Trek in the early 70s? We weren't all a bunch of little kids at heart. John says character often covered their mouths as they spoke or spoke with backs facing. Yeah, it was to save money on making the lip flaps move at the right time, which is not a painstaking process. It's kind of like the least you can do as an animator. But yeah, Filmation was not heavy on the details.
And they were definitely heavy on the reused footage.
Yes.
And music. And
music. But once you get past that, you really can appreciate the fact that there was good writing. This was Star Trek writing for a Star Trek show. And I find myself now as an adult, they make me a little sleepy, but I can enjoy them. Maybe a lot more than I could as a kid. Because when I've talked about this a lot, but when I was a kid, it was all about the ray guns and the explosions and the Gorn and blasting, torpedoes out. I love that stuff. Sean Atkinson said, spent hours watching Spock's jaw wiggle.
And there's hours of it to watch.
If I remember too, there would be like, talk, eyebrows up, eyebrows down. Like, oh boy, that is some animation. And then later when I saw anime, my brain exploded because it was so detail oriented and there's so much to like Japanese animation. Although when I was a kid, we used to call it Japanimation.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Do you remember that?
I was tempted when I put together the slides for the beats to put us in one of them just for the heck, just for the sake of each of us having just one eye visible. That would have been just a little bit too scary, I think. So a
little too much. Let's talk a bit about the episode. Oh geez. You must have taken note of this, Mr. Townsell. Playing Koloth in this episode. Was it the original actor or
no,
was
sir? No, as he did on many of the animated episodes, good old James Doohan performed Koloth in this.
Now, it's so funny to me. It is so funny to me to look at this animated series. They only brought back certain actors. They didn't bring back Walter Koenig, for example. And I have a tidbit about that later. But they gave a lot of the like guest star parts to James Doohan. And I love James Doohan. Oh, nothing but love and respect. But come on, they all sound like James Doohan. There's James Doohan playing Scotty, but then there's James Doohan playing this alien, and then he's playing this alien as well. It's all the same guy. It's all the same guy.
Kind of like when Joe Townsend does Kirk and Scotty. It always sounds like Joe.
You put some English on the ball.
I try.
you put a little bit in there. No whites in the eye, so they only needed to change the lines. Oh my God, Filmation. I want Filmation to be good. Like, oh, do you remember the Flash Gordon cartoon that was on CBS?
Mm-hmm.
There were parts of that were beautiful. They would do rotoscoping and they would do these big, gorgeous, screen filling shots of the ships and stuff. That is true. Actually, Raphael is saying they got mileage out of one paycheck. That is true. Here's something a lot of people don't know. I don't know this directly. My friends have told me this. When you get a role on an animated show, they can get up to 3 other characters out of you without asking for extra money, without you being able to ask for extra money. It's just part of it. So like my friend John DiMaggio, who plays Bender on Futurama, he's always playing like some 2-line guy in the background, or hey, you can't go in there. That's usually Hemingway. That's usually DiMaggio doing that. It does stretch the budget, but it's kind of cool. Like when you're working with Billy West, friend of mine, dropping that name, somebody pick it up for me.
I'm impressed.
Billy West loves doing different kinds of voices, so he would kind of insist on, hey, who's playing the janitor? Like, well, Billy, you're in the A story. You're the whole A story. Yeah, but I still want to be in the C story. Who's playing the janitor? I'll do him. That's what voiceover artists love to do. They love to do different characters. You think we're out of the down and dirty? You got anything more for the down and dirty?
I think we're kind of edging into the tidbits territory that you had in mind for next. So
let's get those tidbits up.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't accept any inferior knockoff. You don't want ground bits. You don't want smidges. You want Townsell's tidbits.
The original.
The original, except no substitutions. What kind of tidbits do you have for this one, Mr. Townsell?
Ooh, does sound good, Raphael.
Tidbits on a Ritz.
Well, this was the 5th episode of the animated series, and more interestingly, it was the 3rd and final episode recorded with the entire cast in one place at one time. From that point forward, I mean, they just basically phoned in all their parts literally and spliced them all together later.
Yeah, you can kind of feel it. Lines that are recorded separately from other lines, like, I'll stand in a booth and get a script and it'd be like, why are you saying this to me? Without the person saying the line to me, it doesn't have the same, emphasis. So, that kind of bleeds through, I think. Although, me, I'm such a nerd for the voices. But yeah, I wonder too if they started with a really good budget, and then when they weren't seeing the numbers, if the budget started getting slashed at that point. I don't know for a fact, but I wonder.
That could be it. I'm guessing also that part of it was they just had to kind of find their methodology and rhythm in terms of recording separately. They figured maybe initially they had to do it as a regular show where all the actors are reacting to each other. I mean, sure. I'm not an actor. I have fantasies about being one someday, but I imagine that having to record dialogue separately is akin to like acting in front of a blue screen. React to this. And there's some huge teamster up there holding like an X or something.
Yeah, I mean, they always want to record you in the clear. Yeah. So even if somebody like in the booth, there's a microphone and they'll be like, John, can you go to page 6, please, and go to the bottom? So there's that. So someone can give you the line, but when they say it, then you have to wait to respond to it because you can't do voice crossover when you're recording like that. Your voice has to be in the clear. And then it becomes modular. It becomes less of a conversation and a little more of a, here's my line, and here's my line, and here's my line, and here's my line. Okay, good talk. Like, you didn't really have a talk, but that is how it's done quite normally. And that is one of the reasons why voiceover artists are so good at what they do, because they can make you think you are listening to a dialogue.
Well, I mean, I see your point as far as James performing multiple parts over the course of the animated series. But at the same time, once you kind of put these limitations to the side, it's very convincing. I mean, he is known for other dialects besides Scottish.
True.
And, I think what would have helped that along might have been more full animation. But hey, it is what it was.
Yeah, that is a good point.
As mentioned last week, I believe, this was actually pitched by David Gerrold, the writer, to be a sequel in the 3rd season of the original series.
Yes, let's talk about David Gerrold.
Yes,
a young guy.
He was in his 20s. His first big sale, as far as I know. Yeah, went on, of course, to become a bigger name temporarily in Star Trek. Before he had falling out with Mr. Roddenberry, unfortunately, when the Next Generation rolled around.
Yeah.
Along with DC Fontana, did some, make of it what you will. Audience, please feel free to comment and laugh at me if you're so inclined. But both of them were kind of heavyweights as far as writing on Land of the Lost, giving a
Look,
little bit of class to Saturday morning TV. Why not?
Land of the Lost was made for children, but the
Mhm.
fact that it had solid science fiction in there is due primarily to DC Fontana, who had the mind of a producer, definitely knew how to organize work and make work good, and recognize talent, because the fact that she hired David Gerald again, I love that. That totally works with me. And David Gerald had a very funny, we talked about this last week, right? He wanted to appear on the show. He wanted to make a cameo
Yes.
on the show. And I guess somebody had told Filmation that. And so the Filmation animators made him the transporter officer.
Well, that's something. No lines, of course. Well, I mean, I know that he was originally told when he wanted to be an extra on the Tribble-j that he was just too skinny.
Yeah.
And like many of us over the years, that proved to be not a problem later on in life. So he eventually made it onto Trials and Tribulations, which we'll see next week.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I got to get a picture of that. I am a big fan of David Gerald, mostly because I mean, we've talked about this, and this is probably something that will keep being a returning theme as we talk about Star Trek.
Mhm.
Is it's great to have the tone.
Mhm.
The tone is, we're serious about this subject that at the time, in entertainment even, was not taken very seriously. The idea of Star Trek was still, even in 1973, 74, 75, it was still like, oh, that weird show with the guy with the pointy ears, and the Gene Roddenberry-ness of it is fine. It's good. I like that. It's a solid level, but there need to be other levels.
Well, sure.
And so Gene L. Kuhn, whose name I've seen a million times in the closing credits of Star Trek TOS, the original series, he would lean heavily on DC Fontana. He would listen to her when she would say, "Oh, this kid David Gerald's got some really funny ideas. We should go with that." And as Gene was kind of trying to keep his control on the franchise, because I think at the time he knew and he felt it was a franchise, and he wasn't wrong.
No, absolutely not.
He wanted to make sure that he wasn't failing. He wanted to make sure no one was taking it from him. And, hey, anybody can understand that kind of insecurity. But by letting go just a little bit, we get something like The Trouble with Tribbles. And then the episodes in Star Trek, the animated series. Let me bring it back to the thing I promised I was going to talk about.
Yes, please.
Walter Koenig. Is that how you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it, John?
My understanding is it is properly pronounced as Koenig.
Koenig.
Yeah.
He was not hired to be one of the voices on the show. He was not a regular on the animated series. However, he wrote one of the episodes, The Infinite Vulcan, I believe it's called.
That's the one. Giant Spock.
So he wrote the Giant Spock episode. Hey, you know what? Look, it's the animated series. You can be as wacky as you want to be. I will not judge you. Besides, it just makes something for lower decks to make fun of later.
Yes. But first they pick the poor Vulcan's brain and steal it. Then they make him a giant wearing his same uniform, of course.
We get some... John Atkins said they had to come up with a new theme music because Gene hosed Alexander Courage. Oh, my God. Do we want to tell that story?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, actually, this is new to me. I was actually thinking, why didn't they just use the original theme? I just thought it was and it probably is somewhat, but I assumed it was some kind of licensing issue, so they had to come with some stock Filmation music or something.
I can only tell you the legends that I have heard. You cannot hold me. I cannot put my hand on a Bible or the Star Trek handbook and swear to this. It's only a story I've heard. So you know that Gene wrote lyrics to the original Star Trek theme,
Yes.
and they are terrible. Like they don't scan. There's nothing musical about them at all. So as John Atkinson brings up, he wrote lyrics to this song. And so now Alexander Courage, who had written the song with the and all that great stuff in it, now has to share credit for writing the song with Gene effing Roddenberry because he tacked on terrible lyrics to the song and basically said, I'm not working for you anymore. Forget it. I hate you. He would come back, I believe, later to work on the movie.
Well, yeah, there's tidbits of the original theme in the motion picture.
Yeah.
And then of course going forward they use it more extensively.
But I can tell you from having done this myself, I used to work on a TV show called The X Show, and it was basically a sketch show. It's a man's show, blah, 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 something like the man show. But basically, we were doing sketches every week, and that's why I loved the job, and that's why I got the job. And so I would write songs now and again. We had a musical coordinator named John Ernst, and he was fantastic. And he would play live music for us, and he was really great. And he was very generous too, because I would write these songs, and he'd be like, "Hey, we gotta publish this, publish this music, John." And so I joined ASCAP, and I got like 12 cents every time it played. I think Johnny Ernst got a lot more because he did a lot more work than I did. But as John Atkinson points out, Alexander Courage lost half his royalties because Gene said, "Yeah, I'm the co-writer."
Well, yeah, obviously that's a big deal financially. It's not just a creative problem,
I mean, in terms of Star Trek, how often has that song been played? How often has that song been licensed? Alexander Courage is supposed to get a paycheck every time.
Mm-hmm.
So Gene Roddenberry's son is getting the paycheck, and that's fine. But yeah, that's how that works. There's another thing that Raphael dug up for us. Gerald acted as series consultant for fan-produced series. Oh, New Voyages. Oh, I didn't realize. And Star Trek Phase 2. Oh, look at that. In June 2013, he was named showrunner of the series. Oh. Of course, nobody wants to listen to my opinion about the fan-produced series, but that's that. No. You know what? God bless you. Go ahead and make a fan-produced series, but I do not think they should be canon.
Well, I don't think most of them are. I mean, if they ever become, I mean, that's obviously the higher ups making that decision. But
Yeah,
I know of relatively few that are even considered to be canon. A lot of them are just fan fiction.
Yeah, fan fiction's fine, but
Yeah.
what will happen will be I'll say something like, "Oh man, I wish they brought back the Doomsday Machine." People are like, "Oh, they did. They brought it back in that thing they shot in a garage in Durham, North Carolina." Like, yeah, it's not the same. That's not the same, right? I'm not usually trying to be a gatekeeper, especially about something like Star Trek, which I think belongs to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I'm Raphael, you make me so happy you agree. Yeah, I just don't. To me, it's like, hey, I drew a picture of Mr. Spock and me fighting Bigfoot. That's canon. I'm canon. I'm a fan. That counts, right? Oh, and I got to admit, I am a real snob when it comes to the acting, too. I love aspirational things. That's great. But again, it's not the same as everybody at Paramount going, "Woo, Anson Mount is a great Christopher Pike," because he is a great Christopher Pike. That's why it's official, because Paramount said Anson Mount is Star Trek. And I watch it as a fan and I go, "You are 100% right." But, some guy going, "Hey, I can be Captain Kirk." Yeah, at your house. But I'm not going to watch it.
I think, well, I do agree technically that probably almost zero fan fiction should be considered canonical. However, I think there's different levels of legitimacy. And some of those productions might get a little bit closer to being canon, depending on the, if not for themselves, but for some of the outside talent they may attract to a system, like David Gerald.
Yeah.
Other actors for example, other writers, etc. So when you
Uh,
have
yeah.
that level of participation and people that are embracing it, then you, at least to some extent, you can say, okay, this is kind of canon at least. Others are
Right.
just no way, as you say, John. I mean, the garage band produced versions, no, of course not.
I mean, God bless you. God bless you. I go out and make what you want to make. But Raphael brings up a good point, because if an episode of New Voyages is written by DC Fontana, it's got to count for something. And so
Exactly.
here I am kind of arguing with myself. You're right. I love DC Fontana. I always want her to get the credit that she never got in, the late 20th century, which was still so male oriented and so like, I don't know, or can women even do science fiction? Like, yes. Next question.
Well, part of the reason she had to go by DC instead of Dorothy.
Exactly. She wasn't going to get to work every week if she was named Dorothy, because somebody at Paramount was going to go, why do you have a girl running your scripts? John Atkinson brings up with the fan fiction, too much Data Tasha fantasy plots.
Oh, I mean, the original fan fiction, at least as far as I know, close to the original, is those silly KS stories written back in the 70s.
KS.
Kirk, Spock, and they were romances.
Right. Yeah.
And not because that they were two guys, but because it's just like, it was so blatantly out of character.
Well, and it's just like, if you're writing a thing for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't need to like tip my hat to it. It's not a part of my, my life as a fan. Any other tidbits you have about this midpoint of the Tribble-gy?
I think I'll just touch on one more, and that is, and again, audience, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the appearance of the robot ships in this episode, I believe, constitutes the first ever look at a full-blown alternate starship level vessel in Star Trek until we got to Star Trek 2.
I was thinking that. I was absolutely thinking that. Like, those are good looking ships. Why isn't that part of the canon? Because I really liked that they were different. They kind of looked like toilets, but but they also kind of looked like Yellow Submarine, which I think is why I was like, ooh, I love it. That's very cool to me. I want to bring up a story, and I don't know if anyone knows whether or not it's true, because this is just one of those like talking crap about people you worked with stories. But allegedly, the reason why these Tribbles are pink is because Hal Sutherland, one of the big names over at Filmation, designed them. And he was colorblind. And when he saw the tan colored model of the Tribbles that they were going off of, I think it was color photographs, it looked pink to him. And that's how he drew them.
That's a popular account, but I have a counter account.
Oh, good.
That's such a thing.
Yeah,
the counter account being, because if you look at the Klingons, for example, they're wearing like lavender.
Right.
And part of the feeling was that the Tribbles were pink, the Klingons wore lavender, because these were primary colors more appealing to children.
Interesting. I mean, that is a big part of this show, is they were skirting the line a lot on this show. Like, one of the episodes, they actually meet a character who looks like Satan and is supposed to be. And a lot of the thinking at the time was, we wouldn't let you do this on primetime television, so you did it on Saturday morning? You guys are insane. But it is one of the cool things about the animated series, that they were so daring. These popsicle colors, these Kool-Aid colors that they were using. Because I know there was another artist that they had said at Filmation, it was like, this guy used pink and purple for everything. He loved pink and purple and green and brown, because they looked good against the backgrounds, was one of the calls, one of the explanations. So could be. We don't know for sure. Unfortunately, most of the people who made this stuff, deep tidbits. John Atkinson says, I once painted my Enterprise model blue due to a really crappy cover photo of the making of Star Trek. I had that book. Yes, it looked blue. It did. And Raphael, I know what you're saying, and I'll say it for you. Fabulous.
That's right.
That's actually Joe and I this is my decision, not Joe's, but Joe is always supportive of me, and I really appreciate it. When we did Starbase 80 Disco Nights way back, we went with hot pink as our main color, and I've actually told him I miss that color, and so is it okay if we make our main color for this show purple? And he was like, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was more enthusiastic than that. I think the great idea.
Because it just looks good. I just really like it. Okay, we should get to our next Tribble entry. This one we've tried to warn you about.
Now, Jumbo, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before you get to that, did you have something you wanted to talk about coming up later in the week?
He promised me he would do it, folks, and he did, because Mr. Townsend always delivers. Yes, coming up. First off, let's tell you, you got to go out there and you got to find the podcast Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, because Test Kitchen, Joe Townsend's story, has been turned into a dramatized podcast feature, and you really got to check it out. It is fantastic. So Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, find that where you find your podcasts.
Exactly.
I'll just say it now, and we'll say it at the end too, because it's important. Tomorrow on Retro Rangers, Mr. Townsend and I will be joined by the brilliant and hilarious Diana J. Brody, and the three of us will watch Mechanical Mayhem. We're going to be watching those vehicles that are trying to kill you. There will be clips for Maximum Overdrive, and of course, my personal favorite, Killdozer.
Love the Killdozer.
Okay, so coming up this week, I'll do this one right now. Coming up this week on Thursday, a CBS Radio Mystery Theater episode. We've already played one fairly recently on Mr. Weber's Web of Mystery, but this one is dynamite. It's perfect to get us ready for the spooky season, getting ready for Halloween. Queen of the Cats. It's about a witch who uses cats to steal children.
Oh my goodness.
Very creepy. Starring Tammy Grimes, and I will tell you right now, Tammy Grimes is one of the most interesting actresses who ever lived. I cannot wait to play this for you this coming Thursday night.
I can't wait to see it and hear it.
Okay, we have got oh jeepers, I didn't front load it, did I? So let me get this next let's see. So
While you're putting the finishing touches on, John, I will conclude the warning you started in that, folks, what we're about to see and hear about is definitely not a favorite of either Captain John or Commander Joe at all.
That's so true.
We have nothing good to say about it, and you'll see what we mean momentarily when we get into the next short. I don't even want to call it a Tribble story because it's so blasphemous to call it that, but
the short treks were part of the Alex Kurtzman new Star Trek,
yes,
which was headed up by Star Trek Discovery. Joe, I think I can safely tell folks that you and I don't hate the new Star Trek under Kurtzman at all.
No, I mean, it's got its highs and lows. I mean, I'm definitely not one of the haters, as we call them these days. But this particular, and again, the short treks that you mentioned were a way to try to keep us on the hook between seasons of Discovery. But this was not something that would entice me to return. So a big misfire, in my opinion, and we'll get into it.
All right. Shades of Strange New Worlds. This next one begins with Captain Pike, played by Anson Mount. Seriously, one of my favorite captains already.
Oh, he's great. I mean, we love him in Strange New Worlds. We loved him on Discovery the whole year he was on. Second season of that.
Just dynamite. So here we go. Let's talk about the second feature on episode 2 of the Tribble-gy. Let's talk about the trouble with Edward.
Retro Trekkers, Tribble-gy, Part 2 of 3. The Trouble with Edward? A prequel story to the original Trouble with Tribbles. Okay. Captain Pike is personally escorting recently promoted Captain Lucero to the doomed science vessel USS Cabot. Talk about being kicked upstairs.
Captain Cutie.
Everything is hunky-dory for Captain Lucero, and she's enjoying her first staff meeting until... Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, ominous.
She calls upon ne'er-do-well Edward. He's been messing around with Tribble DNA. You know, he must have taken tips from Cyrano Jones. He's doing it to make Tribbles especially meaty and tasty. This is more shocking than Chewbacca barbecuing cute little porgs.
Oh,
what the heck?
I hated that.
Slap a few Tribbles on the Weber kettle grill until the juices run clear.
Weber kettle?
Now, regardless, the point is moot. Tribbles breed much too slowly to be good as a sustainable food source. But Edward, he'll just use his own human DNA to make the little critters more prolific.
Oh, Lord.
Then, he can sell the whole kit and caboodle to Arby's because they have the meats. We interrupt this lame short trek with a ridiculous commercial for Tribble's breakfast cereal.
Oh, God.
Yummy.
This was even worse.
Lucero orders Edward to cease and desist. The rogue scientist decides, I am therefore experimenting anyway. Well, before you can say geometric progression, the little varmints are literally farting out new Tribbles at an alarming rate.
Farting out?
Needless to say, Lucero is pissed. You're out of here, Edward. But Captain, shh. Well, I just want to say, hush. But get the hell out of my ship already. Well, not surprisingly, within hours, Tribbles are everywhere. One of the scientists reveals that they're now born pregnant. Too bad they never recorded a log about this, so Dr. McCoy wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel and re-diagnose the whole mess later.
Oh, my God.
Red alert! Edward runs out into the corridor in his tidy whities. No, this is not the reason for the alert. Everyone's fleeing in terror from a virtual tidal wave of Tribbles. Soon, there will be so many, there will be no oxygen left. We're going to run out of air. So Captain Lucero issues her final command aboard the USS Cabot. Abandon ship! Edward, get your ass on the escape shuttle right now. Nope. Think I'll hang out with the Tribbles for a while. Say what? Well, suit yourself, loser. We're out of here. The Tribbles multiply to beyond epic proportions, and Edward drowns as they eat him.
Oh, my God.
Well, we don't know that the Tribbles actually consumed Edward, like 160 pounds of quadritriticale, but we can only hope. Later, Lucero is called on the carpet by a quintet of Starfleet admirals. You lost your ship, and one guy was even killed. What do you have to say for yourself, Captain? That guy was an idiot. Ah, gotcha. Case dismissed. And still later, Trek producers are called on the carpet. You've damaged the entire franchise with this garbage.
Oh, my God.
What do you have to say for yourselves? Well, that plot was idiotic. Ah, gotcha. Well, get back to work.
Oh, goodness.
Folks, let's talk about the down and the dirty.
This is both down and dirty.
Oh, man. All right. So obviously we don't want to spend a ton of time with this, but because we are even running a little late. But oh, man. what is the thing that bothers you the most about this episode, Mr. Townsell?
I have to pick one thing. Well, I'll do my best.
All right, how about the main thing? What is the
main thing? Okay. Listen, it's just awful. I mean,
Oh man.
like you, John, I forced myself to rewatch it to prepare for the show today. And yeah, there you go, Raphael. And like the risk it takes and fails miserably with any prequel story
Yeah.
is that it is a ton of continuity errors.
Yep. Yep.
The characterization is so bad.
Yeah.
And it just is pointless and it's almost offensive. And I mean, I don't care about them eating tribbles, but why?
Yeah.
And again, the thing that bothers me, the continuity is just really off. I mean, I touched on the beats. It's like, why didn't Dr. McCoy know about all this? Don't they, know these things? I mean, this would have happened, 10 years prior?
Exactly. This is a prequel, and here's what really kicks me off. And you know what? Let's just hit the let's just hit the tidbits because we'll do it all. Let's just do it all at once.
Why not?
Here is what really pisses me off about this episode. I watched Enterprise like a lot of people did.
Sure.
And Enterprise is canon. And there is a moment in one of the episodes of Enterprise, I didn't bother to look it up, I should have looked up which one it was, where Trip, the engineer, says something like, "It's hotter than a pregnant Tribble down here." And he actually references that Tribbles, who the Klingons know the Tribbles. Even in Trouble with Tribbles, they know that they have. Am I wrong? I think they have a history where they know they're terrible and they hate them.
I believe there was a brief history even then, because there had been issues on other planets, but these Klingons in the original episode were first time facing them down in person, so to speak, and hearing those annoying squeals for the first time.
Here's another thing that really bothers me. So let me finish that point. So it's canon. Tribbles exist. They are canon. They don't exist because of the Federation. And that makes me so mad, because the original idea that David Gerald had was, what if we, as strangers to the environments that we'll find in space, what if we accidentally create an ecological disaster because we don't understand life forms like we should, because they're alien? That was the whole idea behind the Fuzzies. I'm sorry, the Tribbles. Was the original name, was the Fuzzies. We are in Townsell's Tidbits after all. And that's a great story. That's a tremendous story to tell. That there was a guy and he made it like this, and he was dumb and he wore his underpants and walked around in the halls of his ship, the cabin. God, so stupid. Just makes me so mad that we have to deal with this, because I'm sorry, Alex Kurtzman, I defend you all the time, but you don't know what's funny. Here's the thing. I hate comedy when it's dependent upon a character being in the comedy that makes everything terrible. Some of those characters, like Eric Cartman, I can deal with on South Park. I can deal with that. But I hate when you have a character who is, it's like, we would have been fine if it wasn't for this character. Well, then get rid of that character.
Well, she tried, Johnny. He just wouldn't go. Put him in the brig.
and I have to say, H. John Benjamin, I do not blame him. I do not put this all on him. He is doing what he does. He is being obnoxious to be funny. That is something that certain comedian actors do. I get it. That's fine. I don't love it, but I get it. But to me, these characters that undermine the reality and what keeps things safe and what keeps things smart, it just makes me crazy that they're there to begin with.
Well, I mean, as far as continuity, as I said, I mean, for example, in this silly short trek, I mean, they're multiplying so fast. They're, I didn't use the word during the beats. So I'll just say it here. They're shitting out Tribble so horribly.
Gonna use
it's a
Atkinson.
virtual tidal wave. But 10 years later on the Enterprise, it's bad, but it's not that bad.
Right.
So what
Right.
changed? To slow them down a little bit. I don't know.
And I guess we're supposed to think it's funny that the way he modified the Tribbles was to add his own human DNA. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Now, Raphael says, is this like Barkley on TNG?
Oh, that's not insult Barkley. He's trying to be a great guy. I mean, he had his growing pains, but Barkley turned out to be a very valuable member of Starfleet. So I'll have to say, Raphael, no, not like Barkley.
Actually, Barkley Barkley actually had a really nice role in the end of Voyager. So he's redeemed many times over. I say, although I hear the actor is problematic, but people have a problem with him. I totally get that. So where are we gonna leave this? Honestly, I kind of agree with why is this part of canon? This is terrible.
Well, behind the scenes, I mean, why it shouldn't be part of canon, absolutely. But as far as its existence, I think at this point we're between seasons 2 and 3 of Discovery.
Yeah.
We're hot off season 2 because it featured, Captain Pike and the Enterprise on some level. Yeah. And they were trying to keep that momentum going. Strange New Worlds was not yet there.
Yeah.
Picard was coming up. So I think the short treks are geared just to keep us on the hook, like I say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And I do have one. I'm going to lift this directly from IMDb. I think it's this short trek is not worthy of any tidbits really, but there is one I will just read verbatim from IMDb. Edward is played by an actor named H. John Benjamin, and he's quoted as saying, "I am no chef." Okay, clearly, but the actor did play a chef in the Arby's commercials, and he is the voice of Bob in Bob's Burgers.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. I'm no chef. But he does play Bob on Bob's Burgers. That's right. Which is just show people love. And so there's the redemption for H. John Benjamin there.
I think the only thing that legacy-wise that makes this episode worthwhile or has a right to exist, it did give me an excuse to create a graphic with Captain John using his Weber kettle grill.
Which I really enjoyed. So thank you for that. Ensign Atkinson says, I'm glad I've lived so long and never had encountered this Edward thing before. Yeah, it ain't worth it.
Yeah, don't seek it out.
And Ensign Rosario says, take the data file and phaser it into oblivion. Yes. Here, my friend. All right, we literally have a minute and a half left, and even that's too much. So we want you to join us next week for the third and final chapter with really one of my favorite Star Trek episodes ever.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Right. I'll go on a limb right now and say I think this outdoes even the original Tribbles.
I agree. That is a hot ass take, but I totally agree with that. It is really, I would say it's one of the few times you could improve a Star Trek episode is when DS9 has them travel back in time and the DS9 crew or the Defiant crew finds themselves in trouble with Tribbles. Just love it. We will be talking about that next week on our very own. And I do want to get everybody excited at the end of the month on Halloween night, Thursday, October 31st. We will be doing our War of the Worlds broadcast, and it'll be so much fun. I'm really hoping that you'll join us for it. And we're going to have a pre-show, and Mike Sauter, Our good friend who's helped us out on Retro Rangers a bunch of times will be with us, and he'll be answering all kinds of questions that people have
Oh, it's great.
about War of the Worlds. So that's going to be fun.
But just know, everybody, this is just a fictional broadcast. It's not the real thing.
Oh, look, we're over an hour. Oh, well, it happens. Tomorrow, join me, Joe, Diana J. Brody, anybody who will come and see the show and be in the chat with us. Join us as we watch some incredible clips of these motorized monsters. It's going to be so much fun, John Atkins. It's going to be so much fun doing this War of the World on Halloween night. I've never done it before, and I've always wanted to. So that's going to be...
That is great.
Oh, and Raphael's in New Jersey. I keep forgetting that he's in one of the main locations of War of the Worlds. Well, he's not in Grover's Mills, but I think, Raphael, you told us you visited before, so that'll be fun.
I'm just glad Raphael's watching tonight again, because we don't want him to get confused, thinking it's the real deal when he listens to it.
Raphael, please do not shoot any water towers with your blunderbuss. It's happened in Jersey before, and hey, no judgment. We don't judge, but all right. What a weird little episode this has been, but I'm so glad you joined us for it. I'm so glad you've watched it. Mr. Townsend, thank you as always, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. I look forward to, of course, Mr. Webo's Webo Mystery, and of course, our shows we do together each and every week.
Folks, instead of closing credits, I'm going to take you out with a joetownsend.com ad because there is I didn't realize, but Raphael does have a water tower across the street from him.
Okay, just don't panic, Raphael. It's okay.
Don't panic. Sometimes a water tower is just a water tower. Thank you for the chat, my friend.
Thank you,
Raphael. And thanks for being with us. And folks, here we go. Let's take you out with a little joetownsend.com.
Why not?
Good night.
joetownsend.com. joetownsend.com.